When Daniel discovers a strange clock in his dead brother's apartment, he finds it counts down to unspeakable events, each worse than the last. What happens when the final second ticks away? Stay till the twist. Daniel closed the apartment door behind him and inhaled stale air that hadn't moved in days. The scent was thick, rotting takeout, dust, and something more metallic, almost like rusted coins and blood. Matthew had always been a little strange, but this place didn't just reek of neglect, it reeked of something left behind. Something intentional. The apartment was dark, the blackout curtains nailed shut. Daniel didn't want to turn on the light. He felt like he'd be intruding on something that wasn't his to see, even though his brother was dead and gone, throat sliced ear to ear in what the police had vaguely called a ritualistic suicide. He stepped into the living room. Books were scattered everywhere, open pages underfoot, post-it notes stabbed into spines, margins scribbled with unintelligible notes. Words circled in red, black tape covering paragraphs, entire pages ripped out. In the middle of it all, sitting on the floor like a grotesque trophy, was the clock. It wasn't like any he'd ever seen. Large, circular, almost organic in shape. It looked like it had grown rather than been made. The frame was blackened wood, splintered like bone, and the face was a dull, pearlescent film stretched over the mechanism. No hands. Numbers, just a timer, glowing red. Counting down. 14:57:23. Daniel watched it for a moment. The numbers blinked in perfect rhythm. Not digital, something else. As if the numbers were alive, breathing, pulsing. He should have left right then. Instead, he stepped closer. Matthew had been obsessed with time. He'd rambled in voicemails Daniel hadn't bothered to return. "It's coming, Dan," he'd say. "The clock's been watching me. It doesn't just count time, it feeds on it." There was laughter too, but the kind that shook more than it amused. Desperate, exhausted laughter. Every tick cost something. Daniel thought it was just another spiral. Matthew had always been 1 inch from falling off the edge, but now here it was. A clock counting down, sitting silent in the room where his brother had died. 14:56:59. Something moved in the corner of the room. Daniel spun. Nothing there. Just shadows rippling across the floor like something underwater. He shook his head. Jet lag, grief, maybe even guilt. He looked again at the timer. It ticked. And as it ticked, something inside his chest shifted. "Ah!" Whisper of unease curled in his ribcage. He reached down to touch it. The moment his fingers brushed the edge, the timer blinked just once, and the numbers accelerated. 00:05. The room dimmed. The walls groaned. The air thickened. A sound like a throat clearing filled the room, except it wasn't a sound, it was a presence. As if something ancient and unseen had turned to look at him. Daniel froze. The clock flashed. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. The lights died. For a moment, there was no sound. No time, no breath. Then the screams began. Not his, someone else. Faint at first, but growing louder, closer. He turned and saw nothing. Yet he could feel it. He ran back into the hallway, slamming the door behind him. The sound of screaming was gone. The instant the latch clicked, panting, he leaned against the door, hands trembling. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. It was a voicemail from Matthew. The timestamp read, "Received 3 minutes ago." But that was impossible. He pressed play. "Dan, you can't touch the clock. You can't. Every time it resets, something changes. It remembers. It builds. You're not safe now. You think you are, but you've started it. You've let it see. You." Click. Daniel stared at the phone. The voice had been wet with tears. There had been something else behind the voice, to a whisper beneath it. like words spoken backward. And then the phone rang again. Unknown number. He answered. Silence. Then a whisper. It's counting you now. He hung up and left the building. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He lay on the couch in his hotel room, lights on, staring at the ceiling. The room felt too cold. The air vent hummed in sync with the pulsing in his skull. He kept seeing the timer behind his eyes. 5 seconds. A scream. A reset. It had meant something. But what? At 3:14 a.m., there was a knock at the door. He sat up, heart pounding. Another knock. 3 slow, deliberate raps. He got up and peeked through the peephole. He opened the door anyway. The hallway was empty, but lying neatly in front of the door was a black envelope. He bent down and picked it up. No writing on it. Inside, a single photograph. Polaroid. It showed him, asleep in the hotel bed. But he hadn't been asleep. Until now, he thought. Until just now, but the clock. He turned the photo over. 4 digits written in red ink. 0:05. Exactly the time the clock had reset to. Exactly when it started. Daniel returned to the apartment the next day, this time with a hammer and gloves. He didn't know what he meant to do. Destroy it, maybe. Break the thing and be done with it. When he opened the door, the air inside was different. The smell was worse. And something else was wrong. The books were rearranged, not neatly, but intentionally, like someone had crawled in and made a nest out of them. And in the center, the clock still sat. Except now the timer read :96:34:12. It was longer. The thing had fed. On what? He didn't want to know. He swung the hammer. Hard. It struck the clock and bounced off as if he'd hit rubber. No crack. No scratch. Just a dull thud and a wave of nausea that sent him to his knees. The room shimmered. The clock blinked. :96:34:11. Then it spoke. Not in words. In images. Daniel saw flashes. His father's face, gray and empty in a coffin. His brother, alive, tied to a chair, eyes wide with terror. An alley drenched in blood. The back of Daniel's own head as if watched from behind. Then blackness. He staggered out, vomiting into the stairwell. As he fled the building, he looked back once. In one of the windows, just behind the curtain, a silhouette stood perfectly still. Watching. He tried to burn the place. Gasoline, matches, the whole thing. The fire licked up the walls fast, too fast. Hungry. As he drove away, the building glowed in his rearview mirror. Then, 10 minutes later, the siren stopped. His phone buzzed. A text. No number. Just, nice try. Attached was a photo. The apartment, untouched. Curtains still nailed shut. No soot. No smoke. No fire. And in the center of the photo, the clock. Still ticking. Daniel started hearing it everywhere. The ticking. In his car. At the diner. In the spaces between his blinks. It never ceased with real clocks. It interfered. People around him began to change. Slowly. Subtly. His coworker, Kyle, stared too long at nothing during lunch. When Daniel spoke to him, Kyle didn't answer at first. When he finally turned, his eyes were glassy, blank. Then, with perfect calm, he sighed. You shouldn't have started the clock. Daniel didn't even remember telling him about it. That night, Kyle hung himself in the office break room. The security footage showed him staring into an empty corner of the room for 23 minutes before he moved, his eyes tracking something. At the moment he stepped off the chair, the audio cut to static, a whisper underneath. 3, 2, 1. Click. Daniel couldn't stop shaking. He started marking time obsessively, recording hours, minutes, seconds, writing down everything. But time changed. It no longer followed him. He'd wake up and it would be evening. He'd step into the shower and come out to find 2 days had passed. A calendar marked X's on days he didn't remember living. The last voicemail he ever received from Matthew echoed louder now. It doesn't just measure time. It harvests it. Daniel visited the coroner's office. He needed to see the body again. They told him that wasn't allowed. So he broke in. The drawer was cold. His brother's body lay curled unnaturally, like something pulled inward. The skin was shriveled, tight, but the face, the expression was of horror, not fear horror. Lips frozen mid-scream. Hands clenched so hard the nails had pierced skin. And across the chest, carved deep, TIMEBLEEDS Daniel ran. He drove aimlessly until the sun rose. When he stopped for gas, the attendant stared at him and asked, "How much time do you have left?" Daniel blinked. "What?" "Until it resets." Daniel didn't answer. The man just nodded. "It gets worse every time." Sleep was impossible. His dreams became nesting grounds for something else. He would wake up screaming, arms covered in scratches he couldn't explain. Symbols carved into his forearms that faded by midday. And the timer haunted him. One morning, it appeared on his bathroom mirror, written in condensation, 12 hours 0 minutes and 0 seconds, and ticking. Another time, it blinked from his microwave. 8:44:59. Once, it appeared on his eyelids. He saw it when he blinked. Then one night, Daniel stood in the middle of the street, staring at a man identical to himself. Same clothes, same face, same fear. The doppelganger lifted a hand and whispered, "We are all echoes. Each reset leaves residue. You're leaking." Then it vanished. The next morning, Daniel woke up to find his reflection lagging behind him in the mirror. Visited a priest. A last resort. Father Mikhail listened quietly, his hands trembling. When Daniel showed him a photo of the clock, the priest turned white. "That clock," he whispered, "was in the texts of Enoch. It's a sigil of the Watchers. A device left behind to measure mankind's deviations." "Deviations?" Daniel asked. "Each countdown is a test, but it doesn't test morality. It tests capacity. How much can you endure before breaking?" Daniel laughed bitterly. "And what happens when I break?" Father Mikhail looked away. "You join the others." "What others?" The priest did not answer. He hung himself the next morning. Daniel returned to the apartment. One final time. The door opened before he knocked. Inside, the clock stood taller, breathing, its frame now fused into the floor like roots. The timer glowed red, 0 hours 0 minutes and 3 seconds. He didn't run. He stepped forward. The timer flashed, 0 hours 0 minutes and 2 seconds. The room went dark. He heard breathing behind him. A voice, low and ancient, curling into his ears like worms. "You were never meant to see pastime. 0 hours 0 minutes and 1 second. You've become an anomaly." 0 hours 0 minutes and 0 seconds. The room exploded with light, and then he was elsewhere. A corridor, endless, white, lined with doors. Each door bearing his name. Some were open. He peeked inside one. Inside, he was a child, crying in a basement. Another room. He stood older, blood dripping from his hands, body on the floor. A mirror shattered. Another. He hung from a ceiling fan, swaying gently. Each room a version of him. Each a life lived and lost. And the ticking continued. At the end of the corridor, the clock awaited. Massive now, consuming the wall, and behind it, a shape. Indescribable. Moving like thought, whispering without sound. It showed him everything. How time folds, how identity cracks. How reality bends to RECURSION. Daniel fell to his knees. "What are you?" He The thing did not answer in words. It pressed into his mind like a nail into soft wood. And showed him he had created the clock. Not in this life, but in one before, a version of him obsessed with erasing death, mapping consciousness, immortalizing memory through chronoresonance. The clock had been a vessel, a cage for time. But it leaked. It always leaked. Now it was loose, and it wanted out. Daniel screamed as the hands of the clock unfolded like wings and wrapped around him. And then he awoke in his apartment, sunlight streaming through the window. Knock at the door. He opened it. Matthew stood there. Alive, whole. "Hey," Matthew said, smiling. "You okay?" Daniel stared. The world felt wrong. Too bright. Too still. Clock sat on the table behind him. Its timer read 2900, 00, and ticking down.